Good afternoon, Rachel. This little video is about vibrato. I'm calling it simply excellent vibrato because both words are important. I'd like to have an excellent vibrato, which for me would be one that never gives me any trouble, is capable of being all kinds of different things that vibrato should be. And the simple side of it would be that it's a vibrato that I can understand and analyse and describe quite readily. In fact, the vibrato that I have and use and teach is for me really made up of only two actions that combine together. The vibrato that I have is this kind of thing. This would be a very familiar looking vibrato. I think it's probably an example of vibrato mechanism most likely to be fairly described as normal or orthodox. So, what is its simplicity? This vibrato occurs when the one element, the making of the stopping of the string, a little bit of detail about that in a second, combines with the other element, the one that is about the movement itself. So we have one kind of thing which is a relatively constant and static holding of muscular effort, the stopping of the string, and the other kind of thing which feels like a continuous dynamic activity. About the stopping of the string. This mechanism that I have works just as well if the thumb is being used for string stopping as a counter pressure. Not something that I generally do myself, but it's an interesting observation that the vibrato works just as well if I squeeze a little between the thumb and a stopping finger, as now. More normally, when I'm doing vibrato, I would not be squeezing with the thumb at all, although I might touch lightly with it in various places behind the neck. And so the same vibrato mechanism works perfectly well. Indeed, it works perfectly well if I bring the thumb out on top and there is a small change of things further back in the arm. It would be for me exactly the same vibrato mechanism. Indeed, if I used an outlandish arm posture, I still would be making the vibrato in using the same muscles. So what are those muscles and how is it working? For this, it seems easiest to choose a place on the fingerboard we would normally describe as the high register, because my arm is nicely opened out towards extension and it's easy to see what is going on in the vibrato. If I don't make the stop, but I consider how I would use the muscles involved in vibrato and say enlarge the sweep of the movement of vibrato, then the vibrato would be expressed like this. So it would be for me simply an alternation, a nice, clean, easy, pure alternation of a contracting triceps side of the upper arm that will pull my hand, pull the forearm in that direction, and that alternating smoothly with a contraction on the biceps side of the upper arm that will pull my forearm in this direction. I think that in the vibrato that I do, there is nothing else occurring. I'll come back to that in a second in the low positions. So it's not really vibrato. This is not vibrato because it misses the other ingredient, which is that a finger or fingers is or are kept more or less in one place at the string. And this keeping in the one place is done automatically when the string is depressed somewhat or completely. And as now, so now that my finger is lodged somewhere high up on a string, and now if I enact the same muscles in the upper arm and do so very slowly, then this direction of the vibrato oscillation, by pulling on the triceps muscle, shortening the triceps, will take me in such a way. And then if I return my hand back to and past where it was by contracting the triceps, then we'll get this kind of action. So the biceps and triceps obviously are there. One of their main roles is to articulate the elbow by pulling on the forearm this way or that way. We can see, I can see, and I'm sure you can too, that when I do this action slowly, there is a small but significant change of the plane of the back of my hand. So the back of my hand faces a little bit more towards the camera at this end of the oscillation and comes back and faces a little bit towards me at the other end. But when the vibrato is enacted continuously, like so, this change of plane is really rather slight and doesn't encourage me to think that in any way I am rotating my forearm to make the vibrato action. This idea that I'm not actively rotating my forearm will be very important back in the low position, say we take half position, where it might seem that there is a rotation of the forearm, but if there is, it's just, shall we say, unintended consequence of the action that is going on. That is, the attempt to articulate the elbow with the biceps and triceps while keeping the finger more or less planted. So let me give attention to this action now. I know that some of the colleagues believe that there is a different vibrato mechanism, say, needed in the low positions. I don't know about that because my own examination leads me strongly to think that I'm enacting the same biceps, triceps opposition in the low positions as well. And I can explain the movement of the, say, of the tip of the elbow. We can see that it's not staying in the one place, and we can see that the upper arm is rotating inward and outward a little bit. But these things, to me, are occurring as an unintended but welcome consequence of the use of the biceps and triceps muscles. This way of doing vibrato, biceps, triceps, alternation, and stopping the string, combining together, part of the technical or biomechanical excellence of this surely is to be able to perform the alternating contractions of biceps and triceps and to be able to hold the stop while not doing anything else accidentally. So I would figure that if my vibrato feels tight and unhealthy, it's not so much that what I'm meaning to do is wrong, but that other forms of tension or indeed activity have come into the whole thing. So I have found it useful over my lifetime so far of playing the cello, sometimes to be quiet and feel the stopping happening, and to try to isolate in my proprioception, my feeling inward, exactly what is needed to stop the string and to leave out all other possible tensions. I figure then that if I'm lightly drawing back and down my upper arm to bring my firming finger into a stopping action, that I don't need any tension in my wrist, I don't need any tension in the forearm, and I don't need any tension in my shoulder or rotator cuff either. And so I can practice giving attention to these places and making sure that they are as relaxed as possible. Then I figure that my arm is ready to make an action that could be described like rocking, that it's ready to be moved or jiggled, so that when I start to produce the movement of vibrato, there is play in the whole system, which allows it to go into this beautifully complex and sophisticated looking bunch of interrelated actions. Very interestingly, I find if I try to perform any of the actions higher up actively, let's say I would take the way my elbow is going up and down, and I would start to introduce that as an intended action while doing vibrato, it will wreck the vibrato mechanism. Similarly, if I would take this rocking of the upper arm and try to do it, it will wreck the simple but excellent vibrato mechanism that I'm used to having. Summary: this highly flexible, adaptable vibrato can be as fast as anything, as wide as you would want, it can be slow, it can be narrow and fast. It has never given me any injury or trouble, well, not in the last 2 or 3 decades anyway. It is done simply by holding a stop as purely and easily as possible, and by adding then a regular alternating contraction of biceps and triceps muscles, attempting to articulate the elbow, attempting to move the forearm in such a way, and that the largest skill in all of this, surely, apart from the musical application of vibrato, surely must be, the largest skill surely must be the studied capacity to leave out any other forms of tension that could accidentally come into the picture. Thanks for your time again, Rachel. Bye for now.